So for the next 18 minutes, I'm going to tell you a story. So this is a story about TED's evolution from a conference to a platform for spreading ideas. And it's easy in hindsight to see this as a straight line, but life is always much messier and more interesting than that. So let's begin at the beginning. So TED began in 1984 as a conference focused on technology, entertainment, and design. But over the years, we grew ever broader and now incorporate really anyone with an idea worth spreading, architects to entrepreneurs, philosophers, photographers, philanthropists. Each of our speakers are given 18 minutes on stage to give the talk of their lives, but no pressure. And then we record all of these talks, of course. Now, for the first 22 years of its history, TED was a closed system. What happened at TED stayed at TED. But 5 years ago, TED's new owner, Chris Anderson, decided that these talks deserved a wider audience. So in 2006, we began putting them online for free. First as our podcast series, TED Talks, and then later on TED.com. Now, in 2010, these talks have become sort of a familiar part of the online ecosystem. We've kind of grown up along with online video. But I'd like to take you back 4.5 years to when we originally made that decision to put them online, because almost no one thought it was a good idea. So for starters, it was not obvious to us that there was going to be a big audience online or really anywhere for what is essentially taped lectures. Taped lectures didn't scream a big opportunity, really, to anyone. On top of this, conventional wisdom would tell you that a live event just isn't going to be able to be captured on video. Something is always lost in translation. And on top of this, our talks are 18 minutes long, which is 15 minutes longer than anybody watches online. But we really believed in the idea of these talks. We had been so inspired by the speakers. We felt that if we could do our jobs right, we could capture that magic and bring it out to the world and share it. And this was in line with our mission. So when we launched TED Talks, our goal wasn't to sell more tickets to the conference. It wasn't to build the TED brand. Our specific stated goal was simply to spread ideas. But this was also risky from a business standpoint. So when you run an elite event, which is essentially a luxury item, conventional wisdom, again, would tell you that you have to keep your commodity scarce and your prices high. So releasing the content for free was very risky. So many people worried that this might capsize our business model, but in fact what's happened is that it's been buoyed up. So in the first year that we started launching the talks online for free, we increased our ticket price by 50% to $6,000 and sold out in 1 week with a 1,000-person wait list. Now this completely took us off guard. And to be honest, we've been really surprised by what's happened since then. So at this point, we now have nearly 700 talks online, and they've been watched 250 million times around the world. And so the next logical question is why? Why? How? What's driving that growth? And those are questions we ask ourselves all the time. I wanted to share with you today some of the factors that we think are driving that viral spread. So this is Jason Wishnow. He's our director of film and video at TED, and he knew instinctively that for these talks to succeed, they had to work not just on film, but on the 2-inch screen that most people would be watching them on. And so everything we do, we kept this user in mind. We improved our staging and lighting. We focused on tight shots so that the speaker could really connect emotionally to the audience, even though they were peering through this tiny portal. TED Talks are also filmed on multiple cameras so we could get a dynamic edit. What you're seeing here is Bill Gates on stage at TED 2009. He was about to release mosquitoes into the audience, but we actually didn't know that. So we needed the 6 cameras in order to get that shot. TED Talks also start strong, so we don't include the introductions or even the speaker's own rambling, thank you, great to be here, lovely room. We skip right past that and get to the point where the speech really takes off. And the reason we do that is that users online are extremely vulnerable to distraction. So if you hesitate for a moment, an email will come in, an online search will start, you've lost them. Now, media habits are changing, and they're changing fast, which I think everyone in this room knows. Different people watch video at different times in different ways. So to reach the widest possible audience, we've from the beginning been releasing TED Talks across multiple distribution platforms. So you see here the chart of how our views currently break out. Less than 50% of our views currently are on TED.com. 50% are on TED.com, with 20% from downloads or podcasts, 15% on YouTube, 6% from our embeddable player, and 7% from other sources like CNN or Virgin America flights, where you can watch our talks in flight. Now, what's interesting here is that I don't believe you could take any piece of that puzzle out without jeopardizing the whole. So the embeddable player is only 6% of our overall traffic, but it's a really key part. The fact that our talks are embedded in other blogs and websites allows us to find new users and bring them into the fold. Now, part and parcel with the distribution strategy is the idea of embracing free models. And that's not just about, embracing open models and free models, which is not just about distributing talks for free, but also about surrendering a little bit of control, which can be hard for a content producer. So we've released our talks under a Creative Commons license and encouraged things like embedding that allowed users to bring our talks into their lives, into their communities. We don't require them just to come to us. Now, finally, when you think of viral videos, you tend to think of things like kittens and college pranks and the Charlie kid who bit his brother's finger. Now, those talks go viral because they're funny and because they're surprising and you want to share them. But there are other contagious emotions, like elevation or awe. When you're lifted above yourself, you want to grab someone and pull them by your side. When you're touched by something emotionally, when you well up with tears, or when you've learned something new and have that aha moment. Those are all contagious emotions that you want to share. So to give you a sense of how this might play out on TED, I want to show you an excerpt of one of our most viral talks. This is Hans Rosling. He is a Swedish professor of global health who uses statistics to understand the world. He is not an obvious candidate for an internet rock star, but yet he is. In this excerpt, Hans is about to help you understand the gap between the developing world and the West.
Every bubble here is a country. This country over here is this is China. This is India. The size of the bubble is the population. And on this axis here, I put fertility rate. Because my students, what they said when they looked upon the world, and I asked them, what do you really think about the world? Huh? Well, I first discovered that the textbook was Tintin mainly. And they said the world is still we and them. And we is Western world, and them is third world. And what do you mean with Western world? I said, well, that's long life in small family, and third world is short life in large family. So this is what I could display here. I put fertility rate here, number of children per woman, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to about 8 children per woman. We have very good data since 1960 about, on the size of families in all countries. The error margin is narrow. Here I put life expectancy at birth, from 30 years in some countries up to about 70 years. And 1962, there was really a group of countries here that was industrialized countries, and they had small families and long lives. And these were the developing countries. They had large families and they had relatively short lives. Now, what has happened since 1962? We want to see the change. Are the students right? It's still 2 types of countries? Or have these developing countries got smaller families and they live here? Or have they got longer lives and live up there? Let's see. We start the world. And this is all UN statistic that has been available. Here we go. Can you see there? It's China. They're moving against better health. They're improving there. All the green Latin American countries, they are moving towards smaller families. The yellow ones here are the Arabic countries, and they get larger families, but longer lives, but not larger families. The Africans are the green down here. They still remain here. This is India. Indonesia is moving on pretty fast. And in the 80s here, you have Bangladesh still among the African countries there. But now Bangladesh, it's a miracle that happens in the 80s. The imams start to promote family planning, and they move up into that corner. And in 90s, we have the terrible HIV epidemic that takes down the life expectancy of the African countries, and all the rest of the world moves up into the corner where we have long lives and small family, and we have a completely new world.
That talk went viral because it changes the way you think. It gives you that aha moment. It also shows you things in a way you haven't seen them before. It surprises you that way. And it also touches you. When Africa sinks, your stomach sinks along with it. And all of those things make you want to share it. Now, thanks to talks like Hans Rosling's, as well as some good timing and good luck, we've seen really dramatic growth over the last 4 years. But this growth has a price. As you can imagine, our production costs and bandwidth costs are through the roof, and you have to find a way to pay for that. Now, for us, we're really committed to providing these talks for free, and so sponsorship is our solution. And I really passionately believe that anytime you're creating high-quality content that's reaching a specific audience who loves what you do, you can find a sponsor who also wants to reach that audience. Now, the additional sort of unintended consequence of success or growth is that it gives you a lot more to do. So from customer support to community moderation to site security, you're going to find yourself hiring a lot of people. So this is our small but mighty media team at TED, to whom I am forever grateful. And we have grown from around 5 people to around 50 in the last 3.5 years at TED, but we don't want to grow into a large company. So we're constantly asking ourselves, how can we scale? How can we smartly scale? And one of the answers to that is to provide tools to your audience to let them participate. And one of the first ways that we found to do that was through translation. So we had a number of bilingual users who were offering to subtitle our talks for us. And so just a year ago, actually next week, we launched the TED Open Translation Project, which allows volunteers worldwide to translate talks into their own language. We launched this with fairly modest goals and have been pretty amazed and humbled and frankly a little overwhelmed by what's happened since. So we have 4,000 volunteer translators working in 77 languages. They've produced 9,000 translations. These are the top 20 languages on the site. Each of these have more than 100 talks translated. You might be wondering what Bulgarian is doing so prominently on that list. Only 9 million people speak Bulgarian, but 10 of them are very big TED fans. Thank you, Bulgarians. And the Arabic, also, we owe a great deal of gratitude to a single translator. There's a wonderful guy named Anwar. He's a Muslim Sudanese. He lives in South Korea. He's single-handedly translated more than 200 talks into Arabic. Now, for those of you who haven't used subtitles on our site, I wanted to quickly show you how that worked. This is Hans Rosling's talk. It's subtitled in English, as all of our talks now are. That drop-down menu shows all available languages, often up to 30 or more. When you choose a new language, it changes both the subtitles as well as the headline and the blurb. So we're cycling through different languages now, including Arabic, Tamil, and Thai. On the right-hand side of the page, which we're about to go to, we're going to open up an interactive transcript. So this shows every word in the talk. If you click on any word, it will jump you straight to that point in the video. The languages toggle independently of the subtitles, so you can get this sort of three-way translation tool where you're watching a talk in English with Urdu subtitles and using a Hindi transcript. And by the way, every word in that transcript is now indexable in Google and every language. As you can see, I'm very passionate about this project, but I want to confess to you, really, that before we launched it, it really scared me. Now, I worked for years at Wired.com. I believe in open source solutions, but I can tell you that it is quite a different thing to sort of hypothetically trust the wisdom of crowds and then to actually turn your content over to a translator you don't know speaking a language you don't understand in a country you've never visited. But what I also want to tell you is that our whole staff has been amazed and humbled and sort of overjoyed at what we found over the last year. We're so impressed by the professionalism our volunteers are bringing to their translation. And in the entire year, we haven't had a single instance of a translator purposely mistranslating a talk. Now, we're seeing the same kind of sort of passion in our TEDx project. So TEDx is an initiative that allows individuals or organizations around the world to hold their own TED-like events. So there's a TEDx London, a TEDx Dubai, a TEDx Sydney, and so forth. We don't charge them for the license. They, in turn, can only charge a nominal amount for somebody to attend an event. Now, we launched this project because we were being inundated by requests to hold TED events around the world, and we have a small staff. We couldn't coordinate that many events, but we didn't want to give up on that sort of energy and passion we were seeing. We knew that that would ultimately help us to spread ideas. And so we launched this project again with sort of, humble aspirations and have been amazed and a little overwhelmed by what's happened since. So in the last year, we have 1,000 TEDx events around the world, either held or planned. They're in 70 countries, 35 languages, 50,000 people have already attended a TEDx event. And we are amazed by the ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit of these organizers. So there are events like TEDx Berlin or TEDx Tel Aviv, TEDx Stockholm, TEDx Sao Paulo, held with 1,000 attendees in gorgeous theaters and wonderful speaker lineups. We back at TED HQ, we watch their web streams online, and we're like, did you see what they just did? That's a good idea. We should do that. Like, we are learning from them. Now, on the other end of the production scale is TEDx Kibera, which is held in the slums of Nairobi. You can see that it's held in basically a shanty with a corrugated metal roof and walls. They tack a sheet to the wall in order to project TED Talks. But the events that are held there are no less sort of vibrant and provocative than our more opulent cousins elsewhere. Then finally, and funnily, was TEDx Volcano. So this was held 2 weeks ago in London when the ash cloud was preventing anyone from traveling. There were a number of TEDsters, myself included, who were stranded in London. Nathaniel Whittemore came up with this idea of TEDx Volcano, and we jumped on it. In 28 hours, we organized an event with 12 speakers, 150 attendees, another 700 people watching online. And this is the perfect example of what happens when you create a platform. It's used in ways that you never could have anticipated. So we didn't build the TEDx program to respond to disasters or news events, but that's a way that it could be co-opted. So people are using it to spread those ideas actually when they most need them. Now, throughout each of these projects, we're really pursuing what I call our philosophy of radical openness, and we call it radical because it makes other people extremely nervous for us. They're like, you're giving away your brand. And it made us really nervous, too. But what we've discovered, sort of astonishingly, is that in pursuing these strategies of openness that were supposed to be so risky, all of the unintended consequences have been explosively positive. So in the last year, we've seen 350% growth in our international traffic, 600% growth from Asia, 1,000% growth in South America. But what interests us more isn't so much the expansion of our reach, but the way that our global audience has now become a global team. So all around the world, we have these thought leaders, these beacons of influence who are taking ownership of and feeling invested in the TED brand, and that's massively increased our ability to innovate. And so, sort of driven by this and encouraged by it, we're now moving forward with more confidence in the direction of openness. And I actually have a brand new project to announce to you today. We are launching here at Web 2.0 our TED Open TV project. And this will allow broadcasters around the world to air TED Talks for free, provided that they follow our guidelines, no interruptions and no commercials. Now, since we launched TED Talks, we had planned to distribute across all possible video platforms. And TV, of course, people still watch an awful lot of TV around the world. But more importantly than that, TV is an essential way of reaching the developing world, where low internet penetration rates and slow bandwidth make online video rather impractical. Now, we're launching with around 20 different partners, most of whom had come to us, and in fact, several of whom were instrumental in both designing the project and encouraging us, pushing us to launch it. And they include the Swedish educational broadcasting company KISS TV in East Africa, Geo TV in Pakistan, Link TV here in the US, and also the entire European Broadcasting Union. Now, what's so open about this project isn't just that we're allowing them to use the talks for free, but we're actually encouraging them to build their own programs around it, to find local hosts in a local language to introduce the talks or to wrap them up afterward. Our view is they know their audience, they know their medium, and we can learn from them. Now, across all of these projects that I've talked to you about, translation, TEDx, the TV project, it's interesting to note that they all grew out of popular demand. We didn't come at this with a grand design. We didn't invent these projects in a way, we just agreed to them. And so in a very real way, our strategic plan is really listening to what people want. And that's led us to a much more interesting place than we ever could have arrived at on our own. So 4 years on, TED has evolved from a conference to a media company and now to a platform for spreading ideas. And so you can imagine a point not too far in the future when talks are filmed at a TEDx event in their local language and then translated back into English so we can watch them on TED.com. Then they can be translated into multiple languages, distributed across different platforms from web to TV to other events. And this ecosystem is so much richer than anything we could have ever created on our own. And so for us at TED, our evolution began when we stopped imagining ourselves just narrowly as a conference and really started aligning ourselves with the much broader mission of spreading ideas. And this evolution continued and accelerated as we invited our audience to take a seat at the table with us as team members. Where it will take us, to be honest, we don't exactly know, but what we do know is how we'll find our way, and that's by listening to our users, by trusting in open models, and by continuing to ask the question, how can we best spread ideas? Thank you.